Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today I've got a few things planned. You see I've already got some items going in my inventory here. Want to do some more B upgrades. So I've only got a few of these really. Uh, Want to upgrade my storage on my CPUs from 64K to 256. And I want to automate the creation of matter balls. Main reason I want to do that is to get further along in mega storage components. Hopefully by the end of the episode we can order a few of these, and that'll give us plenty of storage space for the future. Oh, we'll also get into LV, don't worry. With all that said, let's go ahead and make ourselves a matter condenser. I figured I'd show this on stream, or in this recording, in case people hadn't seen this before. You can take a matter condenser and a pattern provider, and what I'm going to do with this is actually make sure I have enough channels. You can use the pattern provider to push water or any other trash material if you have the infinite cobble-gen cell. Doesn't show in JEI, but you can find it by looking for the water cell, looking at the recipe for it. Water buckets will make you infinite water, and one lava bucket will make you an infinite cobblestone cell. Or you can do what I've done, which is if we go back upstairs, I have a sink here with a storage bus on it. It is set to filter operations to just water on insert and extract, and it's set to only extract with a low priority. So if water is ever in our system and we need a recipe that uses water, it'll use the water in our system before using this water. I don't know why I didn't use the teleporter to just teleport back, but it's kind of fun to make that huge jump. So we're going to make a recipe here to condense water into matter balls, 256 per item. If we do some quick math, 256, say I want to make a stack at a time, that is 16,000. So my pattern here is going to be a processing pattern. It's going to be to make matter balls, 64 of them. And I'm going to give it water. If I could just drag water over, I think it should be 16,384 buckets. Maybe millibuckets? We'll find out. If I tell this to craft, okay, that was, maybe it should be millibuckets. That was too many. Too many matter balls. Can I do a decimal? Yes. Oh, I had a matter condenser already. Whatever. Order 64. That didn't even make one. So let's think about this. I made 8 times as many matter balls as I meant to make with 16,384 buckets. So that's 8 times too many. It needs to be 2,048 buckets to make a stack of matter balls. Can I clear this somehow? Oh well. The reason we need these matter balls is they are used in the mega storage components. To get them back, I suppose I could just use an importer. How many channels do I have? Or I could use a pipe. That seems fine enough. Alright, that's one thing ticked off the list. We've got matter balls on a pattern. So now I can make some of these mega storage components. I do not have enough redstone. Let's make a 4 million component. And if we can, let's also set up a 16. And we won't worry about the 256 just yet, because we do not have the redstone for it. Main thing I'm going for here is just completing quests. I guess I could also craft 9 more 16. I cannot. But the idea is we can replace some of these 256Ks with higher versions. Also went ahead and made a bunch of 256 storage components between episodes. All we need are the crafting units. Let's go ahead and make 8 of those. And we'll be waiting a little while these things process. But that's okay. If you haven't seen it yet, there are universal presses, which can press anything. Gold, silicon, certus, or diamond into the appropriate printed circuit. And we're just using extended inscribers. I did set these up with storage buses with the appropriate filter on insert so that they always went to the right place. This is all on a subnet with an interface on a pattern provider. These guys have a special interaction. So, pattern provider with an interface on it, the adjacent block is the interface. It tries to push its ingredients into the interface. The interface has storage, but it's not configured, which is important. If it were configured, then it would just push things into the interface. But since it isn't, it then goes to every storage bus on the network, on this subnetwork, which we have all of our storage buses, and we filtered them all so that they only receive what they're meant to. So our empty inscribers get things like skystone to make skystone dust, printed circuits, redstone, fluix and fluix dust. And since these all have storage buses, once they complete their job, this export bus just sends it back into the pattern provider, which puts it back in our system. We're slowly working our way through these quests. Well, let's go and upgrade some bees. So we needed more redstone. I went ahead and upgraded these guys. I do play on a server that runs all the time. However, it's basically single player. I'm the only player on it. And it looks like 8 hives to 1 modular router to 1 heated centrifuge might not be enough to keep up anymore. So you see I use modular routers to pull items in from all the hives and just send them straight down into this centrifuge. It looks like I need to do an upgrade here. These things just have stack upgrades. They run on eco mode. I don't want to impact the server too much. But it looks like upgrading these bees is too much for one modular router to handle 8. But comparing that to draconic bees, 4 can be handled by 1 router and 1 heated centrifuge. So looks like this is due for an upgrade. I guess I'll get to it. Let's see, we have 1 heated centrifuge just for endercombs, 1 for 8, 1 for another 8. We have here so I think I need 6 more heated centrifuges, if I've counted correctly. And we're running low on copper. Smelt it anyway. This is what I needed eggs for, right here. The heated centrifuge. To make inactive dragon eggs, you need an egg. You may notice some changes have been happening. I've increased the volume of my microphone, as well as my GUI scale. I realized it might have been hard to see what I was doing last episode. I do have dimensional tanks next to these centrifuges. They automatically output their liquid into whatever is adjacent. I'm collecting that honey, and I have one dimensional tank with auto eject on on top of a blast chiller so I can get the honey blocks. I did upgrade this with a resonant component and some flux linkage amplifiers. I bookmarked, you may have noticed, like the Twinite flux linkage amplifier and the Draconic integral component. I do plan on upgrading this at some point, just haven't gotten there yet. I don't think this is going to keep up once we have expanded our bees, but that's okay. Let's see, I made 6, each one takes 4, so we'll make 24 more of these. If you haven't been updating, it is worth it just because productive bee upgrades stack. So nice. Previously, each one took up a single individual slot in your inventory. Alright, I'm gonna just keep working on this. Alright, I think that just about covers it. I hope. Still have a lot of productivity Omega upgrades. But I think we should be alright. I may upgrade some of these wannabes. Also have lumber bees, in case I need more dark oak. Which I'm sure I will, so... Only issue is I don't know which bees are farming which mob. I can tell this one's doing blazes, because I'm trashing the blaze instruction manual. And I believe this one is doing evokers, because I'm trashing the grimoire of evocation. Which reminds me that we're going to need some void upgrades. Upgrading these bees means I need to prepare for having way too many items. So just in case, to be safe, I'll void everything. If I have too much of anything, it will be voided. Whoops. Looks like I have a simple compacting drawer for dark gems, but I'm also putting them in their own drawer. I'll have to fix that eventually. We can further upgrade our bees, but we can do that at a later time. Alright, we're not crafting anything, so I can safely upgrade all of these, which I will. And I'll split these by crouch right clicking. It would appear I still haven't managed to fill all the buffers here. So I'm still going through all my sulfur, making sulfuric acid. But that's alright. It'll get there. With those things out of the way, I suppose let's start LV. I'm not going to tear down any of these machines, because they may still come in handy. We may find out we don't have enough of anything. We may need more rubber, we may need more red alloy. One thing I realized I forgot last episode was making the rubber plunger. Now that we have rubber sheets, I can go ahead and make the plunger and finish all the tools. Wonder what book we got. Protection 1? I'm just deleting that. Alright, getting started in low voltage. First up, we have the wrought iron nugget. Making wrought iron nuggets, we have to smelt iron nuggets. So, right away I'll just make a pattern. Iron nugget to wrought iron nugget, we will do this 64 at a time. And put that in our unobtainium furnace. I'll also teach it how to make wrought iron ingots from nuggets, because I'm sure we're going to need ingots. More than we need nuggets. Which gives us some ingots. Nice. I'm looking through the quests. A passive oxygen line. You'll need it. I don't think I'll do this yet. And rather than rush straight to complete the quest, though, like making a centrifuge, start getting glue, an assembler for phenolic circuit boards, I think I'm going to focus on chemical reactor, because this will let us make more rubber. Perhaps I'll make the centrifuge. I'll definitely need an energy converter. Deciding if I want to go 8 amps or 16. I think I'll go 8 for now. I'm going to want a wire mill, a lathe, and the bender. And a fluid solidifier. think that'll set us up nicely. Interesting that the quest doesn't make us make a new alloy smelter. Lets us keep using our steam one. Oh, cheaper way to coat wires in rubber. Let's go for it. And now we make the patterns. I don't think I'll make patterns for every machine. I'll just make it for machine components and the energy converter. So I reckon I'll need several energy converters, but I probably don't need several wire mills, lathes, and so on. And this is the reason why I kept all of these manual crafting recipes in my molecular assembler up here near the top. So I know like the one of these, like the bender, will make us plates. All it'll cost is energy and time. To be fair, this one's faster, but it also costs only one ingot to make one plate with the bender. And we can also make things like foil, double plates. But yeah, just one ingot makes one plate. So I'll be right back as I set these up. Alright, so the alloy smelter is something I am going to make a basic one of. And I have 8 machines here. So let's start by getting our converter. 8 amps ready to go. It's nice, we'll take those items. And I decided for the alloy smelter, the chemical reactor, centrifuge, wire mill, lathe bender, fluid solidifier, and assembler. The fluid solidifier is one that's going to need casting molds. The main thing I'm going to be using for this is what we already have here is a casting mold for a ball and a plate. And I'll be using those to solidify rubber. So let's get our system to craft the chemical reactor, the centrifuge, the wire mill, the lathe, the bender, needs some iron, a fluid solidifier. We may decide we need an extractor as well as this fluid solidifier. We'll see. The assembler, and this alloy smelter. Thinking about it, let's go ahead and get an extractor. I know now this is 9 machines and we've only got 8 amps to work with, but it's unlikely all of these machines will be running at the same time. Got a vacuum tube, some rubber ingots, wrought iron plate, tin wire, not bad, copper wire, Arsenic dust, that's very lucky in a machine hull. Now I'm going to start setting things up for automation. We've got 32 channels to work with here. I'm going to leave steam going just in case we need it. I'm not going to touch it. So I'm going to pull this off to the side here. And let's plan out our power. So our energy converter is just going to give us a little bit of power to start with. And it only comes out of the red side. Red is output, green is input. And right now it's set to convert GregTech power, or energy units, or EU, into RF, or FE. But if we hit it with our soft hammer, or our soft mallet, it switches. So now it'll output EU and take in FE. Gonna put this along the top here so we can power our machines from the top. I'm going to need some tin cable for that. Now I'm gonna go with tin and cable, not wire, because cable has less loss per meter per ampere. So that means every block that this travels will lose 1 EU volt, or it'll be 32 volts when it comes out of the converter. Then the next block will be 31, 30, 29, 28, and so on. And we're going to make 9 of these. Thankfully, we have enough rubber. And the same thing we saw before with our steam pipes is this GUI. So I'm actually going to also grab some wire cutters to put in my inventory. Let's take these, because they will allow us to connect or disconnect our machines. I'm going to preemptively set all of these to point down. Now the alloy smelter we saw with steam is the most power hungry. So I'll set him, or I'll set it as close to the power source as possible. So this should get a full 32 volts to feed the alloy smelter. Making wires, we can see uses considerably less EU, only 7. Even at LV, this does not overclock, despite this recipe being ultra low voltage. We'll get into overclocking later on, but for now, it just works to know that ULV to LV doesn't overclock, just uses less power. Since it uses less power, I can put it at the very end. The lathe makes rods, uses 16 by the looks of things. But if I want to make buzzsaw blades, screws, rods, it looks like it varies between 4, 16, and this is an MV recipe, so I can't do it anyway. You see it uses 56, and I'm only providing these with 32 EU. That's cool. I didn't know I could make all the Modium rods with the lathe. So I'll put the lathe down here as well. This is a good chance for me to talk about voltage. So 8 amps. You can think of an amp as a packet of power. Each packet that this is carrying is 32 volts. But as it goes through the cable, some of that voltage is lost. So it starts out as 8 amps, or 8 packets of 32 volts. One's going to go into this alloy smelter. So here we'll have 7 packets remaining. 7 packets then of 31 volts. 31 because 10 cable loses 1 EU volt per meter. Hopefully that makes sense. Our fluid solidifier is also a low voltage, or ultra low voltage, so I'll actually put it next to the wire mill. And I'll have the lathe somewhere else. The centrifuge, it depends on the recipe that we're running. Looks like centrifuging impure piles of dust requires 24 EU. So I'm going to assume this thing takes a lot to run. The bender takes 16, so it's, or 24. So we'll put that guy next. Our assembler can take 16 to make things like machine casings, 7 to make cables to coat them in rubber. It takes 30 to make a conveyor module. So maybe I move the bender over one and put the assembler down. Our extractor, there are loads of recipes as you can see, but like turning copper nickel into liquid copper nickel is 30 LV, or 30 EU a tick. So maybe I move these one more again, so that I can fit the extractor in. And our chemical reactor uses like 10, 30 for some processes, 7 for others. Voltages we can't reach yet. I'm going to assume it's fine to have our chemical reactor here, which puts our lathe here. Alright, we've got all our machines placed. Let me put a flux plug on here. And it just pulls 1024 FE. We've got that easy. And we can see in the tooltip, these machines have power. I can't use all 9 at once. It will not have enough power to run. But that's okay. We won't be using all 9 at once. What I'll do is I'll just set all 9 pattern providers down behind the machines. And we can plug them in. This one is missing a channel. If I just put down one more cable, now we have 9 out of 32 channels going. Looks alright to me. Now I need to configure each machine. And I'll configure each machine by clicking on this little gear icon. And we can see we get this kind of GUI. We can spin things around. We can select different sides. And if you left click, you actually change the output settings of the machine. So left clicking once will select it, twice will say output to this side, 3 times will say auto output this side. what I'm going to do is tell it to auto output into the pattern provider. I could also toggle this button, and you'll see it says auto, and I'm going to click this, allow items input from the output side. This will let it be an input and an output. So my pattern provider can push into the machine, and it'll also receive items when it finishes recipes. I'm going to do this for every machine. I'll do it for both fluids and items. Alright, there's all our machines. They're all configured. Now we need to put our patterns in. This is going to take a second, as you can imagine, because now we're going to take every pattern I put here, well, not every, most patterns that I put here, and we're going to convert them into machine recipes or processing recipes. It's like making a small steel gear. I don't think I can do yet. The tin rotor, can't do yet. I could, but I won't. But cables I can do. So I'll start taking those out. Gonna make a recipe for rubber, liquid. So I know I can do this in a chemical reactor, raw rubber pulp. I need a recipe for that, and sulfur. This will make 1,296 millibuckets. Each ingot is 144 millibuckets. So that is 9 ingots of rubber. And we'll use our fluid solidifier here to make plates. So I can stick the casting mold plate in, and we'll use it to make rubber sheets. That's interesting. I don't know why it says clean steam vent. This isn't Among Us. But this is the recipe I will encode, and I won't use the casting mold plate. I'll take it out. But here we have 0.144 buckets, 144 millibuckets. 1 ingot of rubber will make 1 sheet. And I can put that into my fluid solidifier. I am going to change these to blocking mode. The reason being, I don't want my machines to get confused between patterns. I don't want a recipe pushing, for example, in my chemical reactor, raw rubber pulp, sulfur dust, and then also like sulfur dioxide and oxygen to make sulfur trioxide at the same time. I want recipes to be running one at a time, just in case there's some recipe conflict between like sulfur dust and sulfur dioxide making something else. Raw rubber pulp, we will centrifuge sticky resin for. The main ingredient we'll get out is raw rubber pulp. I'm just going to go through all of these, or as many as I can. Red alloy cable. You have to make sure you choose the right rubber There are three. Regular rubber is the lowest tier, so you'll notice we use the most of it. If we had styrene butadiene rubber, it would use less rubber, but we don't. Actually, thinking about it, red alloy cable coating, we've got access to this, 3 rubber sheets. We've now got better sheet to ingot, ingot to sheet ratios. 1 ingot makes 1 sheet, whereas before it was 2 to 1. We'll keep this a crafting recipe. I'll do that for all my wires. I don't see why not. One thing I did not mention is the bender is going to require a programmed circuit. Now you see you can make a programmed circuit from any low voltage circuit. We've made plenty of low voltage circuits. We made 32 last episode. We could turn that into a programmed circuit. However, you'll also notice in the GUI of these machines, in the bottom left is this circuit settings button. This is called a ghost circuit. It lets us set, if we click it, the circuit number for it to run on. So I'll set circuit 1. If I needed to deselect circuit 1, I could just left click in here, but left clicking circuit 1 will set circuit 1. Now if I take some copper ingots, I can stick those through and it'll begin processing them into copper plates. Very handy. And we see it takes 3 seconds to run. And I'm getting copper plates. Just thought I'd mention that. We don't need to take our hard-earned circuits, of which we only have 17 left. We don't need to sacrifice one to put into this input. With that, I'm going to continue editing these recipes. Alright, so I just made the pattern for the copper nickel ingot. As I noticed, that's one of our first quests. Let's go ahead and try and craft some. Let's make it a stack. This thing takes 5 seconds to craft, and it's using 16 EU a tick. So, in this case, it wasn't necessary to make it the first one. It's not using a full 32. This one's using 24, which is quite a bit, but it's got enough power that it can make up for it. We get some more copper nickel. That's nice. And we need to get into the electric blast furnace, some ore processing. I guess I'll make this casting mold. The downside to switching to machines is it takes significantly longer. You know, auto crafting with AE2, as long as we have the ingots, it just instantly made these plates. Now it takes some amount of time. Get some more LV machine casings, some more steel. going to come in handy for us. Also asks us to make the basic mixer, the basic chemical bath. I'll take these off my list. Basic chemical bath, the basic mixer, and it tells us the basics for ore processing. If we take a macerator, we feed it ore, we put whatever it makes into the ore washer with water so it can wash. Then we take whatever it makes, put it through a thermal centrifuge. We take that refined ore, we macerate it one more time. That should give us dust. The downside to ore processing at low voltage is we do not get any byproducts. At high voltage and above, we will get our byproducts. There are many ways to automate this setup, so it's left as an exercise for us. But looks like the quest just calls for a macerator, an ore washer, and a thermal centrifuge. Easy enough. The electric blast furnace, we're going to need quite a bit. And our chemical reactor looks like we're going to need to make sodium persulfate eventually. So we can get gallium dust. Cobaltite will give us arsenic. We're going to need oxygen. We're going to need glue, a bucket of it. I did not set up the recipe for rubber. Oops. We're going to want to use the correct sulfur dust, which in this case is the GregTech version. Which, yeah, we still don't have any of. Our bees are producing it, but Mechanism is consuming it. I'll eventually get back to Mechanism, making plutonium to make the supercritical phase shifter, or SPS. But that's a job for a different day. So I'm just deciding how am I going to order rubber. If I ask it to craft me rubber, it's going to say it needs sulfur. If I put sulfur in, it's not going to have it, because it gets pulled immediately by Mechanism. So I suppose what I can do is I can disable this machine for now. Eventually this chest will fill, and will be golden. Because this thing is still backing up on sulfuric acid. Hopefully we don't need any rubber anytime soon, so I'm not going to worry about it yet. Quick little lapse there. I ran into a problem. To make cupronickel coil blocks, I need a mixer, because I need 10 alloy. I can extract 10 alloy dust into liquid 10 alloy, but to make 10 alloy dust, I need to mix iron and tin dust on program 1. Now I could try and just pile on another machine right here at the end. Matter of fact, this thing only uses 7 EU a tick. I might as well. I did make another 8 amp energy converter, and I got ourselves the bucket of glue. I just put 10 sticky resin through here, through the centrifuge. Main reason I did that was to go back upstairs to our wall where I have some fluid drawers. And this one is unlocked. Has It's a 1x2. I'll put glue in right here. Now, ultimately, I like to put oxygen in the top drawer, but I think I won't for now. And instead, I'm just going to lock this, and then I'm going to link it. So we have access to the glue in our system. May come in handy later. And we get some more sticky resin. All of that we should be able to make. Oh, I didn't actually make the recipe for this. Copper nickel coil blocks in our assembler. And the quest said we needed 16, so I'll go ahead and order 16. This is going to take a little while. Looks like we need 2 stacks of copper nickel ingots to make 16. So I'll be back when this is done. Alright, now we have 16 copper nickel coil blocks. Let's go ahead and get the rest of these things crafted up. We need an electric blast furnace. We're going to need 2 energy hatches at low voltage. We're going to need an input bus. We're going to need an input hatch. We're going to need output bus, an output hatch, doing all of these at low voltage. We're going to need a maintenance hatch. We're going to need a muffler hatch. And last but not least, we're going to need some heat-proof Invar machine casings. We need 9, I believe. Slowly completing tasks for this electronic blast furnace. The machines are crafting for us. And I placed the machine so we could see the front because they have little animations, and I quite like those animations. They're nice. Sure does take a while to craft. 30 seconds to make some rubber. Goodness. The electric blast furnace. If we look in JEI, when we look at the uses, we can find that by hitting U on it. There is a multi-block info page, or tab, that shows us how to build it. We can see how the structure looks. If we click on certain blocks, it'll tell you like this block has to be the controller. On the left, it could be an input bus, an output bus, an input hatch, an output hatch, energy hatch, maintenance hatch, or machine casing. And it can be any tier by the look of it. If we click this all, it's going to start filtering through the layers. So it shows us there's a solid layer on the bottom. Then we have to use coil blocks. All heating coils have to be the same. And there's a hole in the middle. And we can see the muffler has to go on top. It cannot be obstructed, so just like a steam vent, it cannot be obstructed. You can also see there's this P. I'm not sure what the P stands for, but if we click it, it'll show us alternative versions of the electric blast furnace. So this is the next version. It goes Cupronickel, then Canthal is the coil block upgrade. If we hold shift, we see the base heat capacity is increased. If we do it again, nichrome, it's increased higher. And there's some additional info for like the multi-smelter, the pyrolyze oven, the cracking unit. We'll care about those later, maybe. But the one we care about is Cupronickel. So the electric blast furnace is going to be able to process any recipe that says the heat required is 1800 Kelvin or less. So it'll also tell us what coil is required in the electric blast furnace recipe and the voltage. Let's go ahead and try and build this. Or at least start building it. Looks like we're still waiting on a muffler hatch and our Invar machine casing. But we'll put outputs. We can put on the side here. Inputs. Let's switch these around. We'll put inputs here. The hatch is for fluids. The bus is for items. Put an output bus, an output hatch. Actually, thinking about this, might be better to flip it around. It takes a while to build these things. Put the energy hatches here. And I can put the maintenance hatch here. Now we've got our heat-proof machine casing. We've got our coil blocks. I have to crouch while placing these just so I don't interact with anything. And we put our muffler hatch right here in the center. Just like that, forms the machine. Gain some resistors, gain some 8x10 cable, that'll come in handy. Main reason being is we need to power these energy hatches. Energy hatches, specifically LV, well, all energy hatches will accept 2 amps of power, and our multi-blocks can have between 1 to 3 energy hatches in general. Each energy hatch accepts 2 amps of power, so if I put these two in here, and I manage to feed 8 amps through these cables, or 4 amps, 4 amps in total will go to our blast furnace. And you'll see, since we have 2 low voltage energy hatches, this guy can actually process recipes at medium voltage. The reason being, if we consider low voltage as 32 EU, or 32 like energy units, if we have 4 of those, that makes 128. 4 amps, remember those are packets of 32 volts, or 32 EU. Those add up together to make 128. The electric blast furnace will convert that to 1 amp of medium voltage for us. So with that, we can do MV recipes. We'll make use of this quite a lot going forward. And we'll notice we have the maintenance hatch. Everything is broken. We've got pipes loose, screws loose, there's something stuck somewhere, there's plating dented. So to fix the maintenance hatch issues, you just open up your maintenance hatch, you have some tools in your inventory, and you click this slot. That didn't solve all of them, so we still need the screwdriver, the hard hammer, and the crowbar. Let's go ahead and grab a screwdriver, one of these hammers out, and the crowbar out. And now there are no issues. So I'll put those back in our system. You see I did make an 8 amp LV energy converter earlier. This is going to come in handy for us. I'm going to put it here, and we have to soft mallet it to switch it around and connect our wires to it. And power it, that might help. So now, if we put something in here, it could indeed run. Looks like it wants us to make arsenic trioxide. For that we need cobaltite and oxygen, neither of which we have. So we got ahead of ourselves a little bit by making this. That's okay. Let's go ahead and make an ore processing setup. Which I can just put along this cable. I don't believe I need steam anymore. Just to make sure of that, let me try and order some circuits. I do. I don't have glass tubes automated. So how could I automate glass tubes? Looks like I could use an alloy smelter with glass dust, or a fluid solidifier with liquid glass by extracting glass. Our fluid solidifier has a plate mold in it, and our alloy smelter needs to have both inventory slots open. So neither option is easily accessible, which is alright. We just need to place either another alloy smelter down or something else. And a macerator. Alright, so I just made a fluid solidifier. I put my ball mold inside of it. I made a pattern for glass tubes out of liquid glass. All that's left is setting up auto export and allowing input from the output side. So now, if I were to try and order a stack of circuits, we could indeed craft it. Oh, no, it seems I missed wood planks. That'll be important. So if I ask it to make 1,000, it has to calculate for a second, but it'll eventually tell me I don't have wood planks. Because I would like to move away from steam. I could tear these all down, make a little bit of room for more LV machines. Alright, wood planks were pretty easy. They were just compressed wood pulp. So we need wood pulp and a compressor. Compressor, we can go ahead and craft. To make wood pulp, we're going to need... We could centrifuge rubber logs for a chance at wood pulp. But we could make long wood sticks. I don't know what those are useful for. Sawing into regular sticks or burning. Interesting. We could also just use the same recipe we did before, which was macerate wood logs for wood pulp. For 6 of them, and a chance at 7. So that's what we're going to go with. So I need to make a macerator and a compressor and set those up. I'll be back in a jiff. For you, it'll be no time at all. Alright, welcome back. And as you can see, now if I asked it to make 100 electronic circuits, every component is craftable. So with that, we can tear down our steam machines. We no longer need them. The sink is coming with us. We'll stick that in our backpack. The solid boiler and pipe, the hoppers, the smelters, all of it. We're going to break it down. And one of the nice things you can do with GregTech, I'll actually keep these pipes and hoppers, but since we just built a macerator that has no power for some reason, there we go. Just a quick disconnect and reconnect. So we can actually stick these machines back through the macerator. It's going to take a long time, but it will eventually break them down and give us some stone dust, some brick dust, and some bronze dust. So we get some of the components back that we put in to make it. So we put some bricks in, we put a bunch of bronze in, put a bunch of bronze in, put a good amount of stone. So it gives you back, it's recycling. So I don't need to keep these. And I went ahead and made some patterns. One thing I also did was just plan ahead a little bit and make a bunch of fluid storage cells. We will definitely need fluid storage. Because looking at the quests, they talk about a passive oxygen line. So that's something I would want to make. It talks about a rock crusher, two forge hammers, an arc furnace, a macerator, a centrifuge, and an electrolyzer. So I'm going to go ahead and make those. And I'll put it along this back wall. Alright, so we've run into our first problem, and that is that to make an arc furnace for the passive oxygen line, we need graphite dust. Now, I have some raw graphite here, which I can find pretty easily by double-clicking the search bar in JEI, and it'll highlight the graphite that I have. We've got 1500. That's all well and good. I got that as part of the excavation of the area. I've stored this in these two netherite backpacks. But once I use all that graphite, that's it, I'm out. The other thing to note here is I don't have any cobalt or cobaltite in either of my backpacks. So I think this is our first problem that we're going to have to solve, which I'm going to leave for the next episode. If you've managed to stick it through, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.